All right, I planned making this video on Sunday, but one thing led to the other. I wasn't able to, get myself to make the video, and I felt like today being Monday, now that the pressures of the day hasn't started, this will be the best time, to kind of get this out. Hopefully I can get myself to, talk about something that kind of bothers all of us as resellers. If you sell on a platform like eBay, this is going to be specifically for you. But then if you sell on other platforms, Facebook Marketplace, definitely you'll be able to get a value or two from this video. Of course, if you are meeting me for the first time, I sell used computers on eBay, and I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And I always try to make videos, of my daily activities right here from my warehouse, in general. That being said, in the last video, I did talk about something which is the promoted listing thing. I was just kind of introducing the fact that the promoted listing thing on eBay is becoming a thing. A long time ago, it was pretty much something that you were not kind of, obligated to do. You could decide to promote your items. If you were like thinking that, okay, I've got very good items, there's just no reason for me to begin to spend more money promoting it, because the items I have, I understand that people are going to look for it, and buyers are going to be smarter, using the eBay filter to actually look for the, the best priced item. Guys, I'm beginning to take a look again, and to be honest, I've actually made videos, not one or two in the past, talking about the same thing, that if you have a good item, there's really no reason for you to continue to spend money to try to market it, because if the item is good enough, say a phone like this, an iPhone, and you kind of feel like this is a phone that you have checked through the listings on eBay, you've seen that your listings perhaps is the best, the item is in the best condition, you are offering free shipping, you are offering free returns, and you're even giving a customer 30 days to return your item if they don't like it, and the item in itself is very good technically and optically, and you feel like the price you are offering the item is actually good enough. There is really no reason for you to continue to promote the item. This was what we were all used to. This was talking about back in the days, 1, 2, 3 years ago. So you list an item, and from nowhere, eBay does its job and they sell the item. And then gradually, there was this thing called promoted listing, which came into being, and eBay has been passively promoting it. Right now, eBay is doing a lot to really make sure that you see that this item, you need to promote it at a rate that eBay is recommending you. Because if you try to edit your item, let's say you've listed an item and you've promoted it for 2%, eBay is going to give you a notification just on your seller cockpit. And if you try to edit the item, you see that on the place where you have to specify the promoted listing percent, you see that it's actually, there's a red indication there that, look, if you do not promote this item at this amount that's recommended to you, your item might actually suffer, less visibility. I wouldn't know how this actually works, but I've always been promoting all my items at 5%. But the event of the past few days kind of make me begin to, look inwards and take a look at what's going on. Sales are down and eBay is pushing these promoted listings. The funny thing is that the promoted listing percent, guys, they are damn high. I sell electronics, desktop PCs, laptops, phones, tablets, and so on and so forth. The promoted listing recommendation I see on my seller cockpit, some are in the ranges of 18%. eBay is telling me, look, if you do not promote this item at 18%, your items might get, low visibility. And I'm kind of taking a look and thinking, if eBay is actively pushing this, there must be something going on. It's just not for no reason that eBay is telling us, look, you have to be seen promoting your items. Of course, eBay wants to make money from this process. The idea is that when you go ahead and, promote your items, you get better visibility. If you take a look at the search rankings on eBay, the items are promoted tends to be higher up there in the search ranking. But the problem is, I don't have a problem promoting my items for 5%, 6%, 7%. Some of these items, eBay is recommending to us that this item be promoted at 17%. And I'm just taking a look. The profit on this item is not infinite. Sometimes the profit on the items we sell are pretty much like 40 euros, 50 euros, depending on the kind of items we buy. And if we're already paying, almost 15% for all the eBay transaction fee, all that stuff, and then you still have to add another, let's just say 18% or even 20% in some of the items I have, that's pretty much 50% of the profit gone. And don't forget, you still need to factor in the fact that you have to ship out the item, You have to spend time in preparing the item for shipment. You have to factor in the cost of the packaging materials and all that. At the end of the day, it's just tending to a station where you are selling. The platform is getting its own cut. The customer is getting his own goods. But the seller in this case is actually, struggling. This was the reason why I kept playing the 5% game for a very, very long time, for a very, very long, well over 2 years. I've always been leaving all my items. Each time I listed new items, they are automatically set to 5% promoted listing fee because I felt like this was good enough. But in the last times, sales have pretty much just went under, I checked on YouTube, people are complaining. It's not just in the electronics category. Those that sell clothing, those that sell, household utensils, books. Everyone are just thinking that what's going on. Perhaps because it's beginning of summer, maybe people are going for holiday already. I wouldn't know. In Germany right here, it's not, it's still not holiday yet. In about 2 weeks or so, we are going to be experiencing like a 2 weeks holiday, and perhaps this might also be the reason. But one thing I did do, I felt like, look, if you want to survive the current, trend or whatever is going on right now, you must be seen doing what eBay is advising us to do. Yes, it might be a little bit difficult, but it is what it is. If you depend on the proceeds of your eBay business to pay your bills, to pay your house rent, I kind of feel like it also makes no sense for you to just sit down and not be making sales, because if you are not making sales, it's even a worse situation to be in. Yes, giving your profit might be slashed right now because I wouldn't know how some of the buyers are able to pull this off, but over the weekend, I also listed a lot of items. I think I listed about 10 or 15 computers, like relisted some old items, even some new ones, using the recommended promoted listing percent that eBay has given up for some offers. They were promoted at 17%, some at 18%. So I have pretty much just done what I have to do. The only thing left for me to do now is just to wait and see how eBay, does its magic. I don't want to believe that the private sellers are able to pull this off, promoting their items at 17, 18, 19%. I don't want to believe that all businesses are also able to pull this off. But just for my own sake, to kind of test to see if this promoted listing thing finally is something that is just left for all of us to do, I did go ahead and promote a lot of my items, pretty much every item, just to see how far eBay is going to take these offers and see if there will be a direct result from me, doing that. The last computers that sold, 2 or 3 computers that sold, they were not even from promoted listings. I wasn't so sure how, the buyer actually did search for this offer and went ahead to buy it. But I checked on my Solar Cockpit, and these items were not sold, as a result of the promoted listing team. Because if they were sold through promoted listing, you will see that under the transaction details, you also see it, narrated there that the item was actually as a result of promoted listing. But then it's just too early to begin to, question all the listings I've done. Sometimes when you list items, it takes about 2 or 3 days for the item to be completely indexed on the eBay platform. And before the items, is shown all over eBay and even outside of eBay. But then this is what it is. When things are happening like this is the best time for us not to give up, because of course there are people that are going to say, look, it's no longer worth it to, to just be working for almost for free, because truth be said, good quality items are getting increasingly difficult, to find. Of course, there's still a way to get these items, but it wasn't as it was, years ago, where you could just, go to wherever location, you'll be able to lay your hands on good quality items. Right now, the competition is very stiff. I was talking to one of my friends that also sells in the same category which I sell, and he was telling me that some of his computers right now are being sold for just €5 profits. And I was like, why do you have to do that? Man, he has to do what he has to do because he has to be in business. He bought a particular computer in large quantities, not knowing that, right there on the platform is also a computer selling the same PC for pretty much breakneck price. And nobody knows how long the computer is going to finish selling his item. He prefers to at least sell for at least €5, profit, just to bring out something from the transaction. I'm not saying that everything is like this right now, but guys, the competition is real. A lot of people are, figuring out these things, saying that, look, you can actually make a lot of money, buying stuff from point A, bringing it to point B, and actually selling it for profit. Of course, it's going to be a difficult time, but like I always say, I have been selling long enough on this platform to understand that at the end of the day, it is just a phase. It's something that's going to normalize. People are going to be used to these prices because right now, if you promote your items at say 20% and you have factored in the promoted listing fee on your offer, the final price of that item is going to be a little bit more expensive than what a lot of the other sellers that are not promoting theirs will be. All right, it is just what it is. So if somebody goes to eBay now, sees an item selling for 10 euros, and he sees that of a competitor that is being sold for 7 euros, perhaps the person might want to skip your listing and buy the other one. That is the only, problem I have with this whole promoted listing thing, because if I have, factored in the fact that I am promoting my item for 20%, I want it to sell, even though on the back end, I'm already taking a profit cut, but my price, more often than not, is still going to be more expensive than what a private seller is selling, because the private seller doesn't need to pay the sales tax, possibly doesn't need to pay shop fee and so many other business expenses that we business people sell. And from my own perspective, the business sellers are the people that really do make sure that eBay does a lot of volumes. Private sellers, yes, today they are on the platform. Tomorrow they might not be there, but some of the business sellers, they are there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm talking about sellers that have been selling the same thing, generating a lot of transaction fee for eBay. I really do think that at some point, eBay is going to think about this and say, look, there have to be a way to compensate these business sellers. Otherwise, if we keep, pushing these business sellers, to use promoted listings, 20%, 15%, it might result in a situation where the private sellers might just be having a fee day, which I also believe will not be the best, for eBay. So like I said, items have been listed. I'm going to go ahead later on today to ship out the things that have sold. A Dell Optiplex PC sold, a Lenovo ThinkCentre sold, and also a HP laptop also sold. Definitely, I'm going to be making videos about that, telling you guys the backstory of how these items sold. And if there are going to be challenges in me shipping out these items, I'm definitely, going to be talking about it with you guys. Let me know how it has been with you. Are you also currently experiencing low sales? If you are experiencing high sales, what are you doing differently that we are not doing? If you feel comfortable enough to share it in the comment section, I would really do appreciate that. Let us know so that we all can also go ahead and implement that same strategy, possibly to also see, sales in our shop. Until I see you again in the next video, peace.